Hello everybody, Steffi here from The Makers, and it's really nice that you're joining me today on our doll making video tutorial or live stream tutorial, depending when you're watching it, whether you're here with me now or whether you watch it sometime later. And I'm just checking that everything seems to be setting. Oh yeah, I just need to turn myself down on the second device here so I can watch you and read the comments more like it. So I can't watch you, but I can see what you're writing. So let's just see who is here. Faith is here. Hello, Faith. Good morning, all, she says. Diane is there. Good morning, Steffi. And to all happy place stabbers. Today we're sewers, not stubbers. And Helen is there. Present, Miss. Oh dear, thought we were back at school. Hi, Faith and Diane. Helen, are you a teacher at school? And you're not where you thought you would be, I think. Diane is waving. Mo saying hey everyone. Sonia is there saying hi, and then of course Emma is here, and Serena is here as well. And we have quite a few people who are coming here today to sew along because they bought one of our Doll's House baby packs. And if you didn't know about this, it's not too late to buy one, but obviously it's too late to buy one if you want to sew along live, but you can rewatch this at any point later. So it was quite hard to put this together because we're making a tiny little baby. So can you imagine how few ingredients you need to make something like this? It's very little, so hence the baby pack makes a lot more than one. And in fact, I've forgotten how many, but I think you can make at least 5 with the ingredients that are in there. And let's just have a quick look so you can see what we put into this pack. You definitely get your little letter here, which will be slightly changed after the live stream, but the important bit is that you get the templates. So if you are still stuck at home, haven't got access to a computer and a printer, but you have got our Making Soft Dolls book, you don't need to worry about it. You can literally just use the template there. Of course, if you've got our Making Soft Dolls book and you can work with the templates in there, then you don't need this at all. And then you get a big piece of felt that makes you lots of babies. You get wool for the head and stuffing. You get 3 pipe cleaners, bearing in mind for one baby you only need 10 centimeters and there are 3 times 30 centimeters in there. You get a whole reel of cotton to match the fabric that you're working with. And then you also get extra strong thread. You get brown for the hair color and making the eyes, and you get red for the mouth. So that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, and did I mention you get a piece of stockinette in this lovely color there. So you can of course make your own variation of these babies if you want to make different color skin, different color body, different color eyes and hair. It's entirely up to you. And we have a huge range of these stretchy stockinette fabrics that are great for making dolls' bodies. That one we call that brown. That one's called cacao. Just trying to remember all the names. I might get them wrong. I think this is natural skin. And then we've got lots of others which I haven't got here to show you, but that's quite all right. I've got all the dolls out. They're all watching what we're doing. So we are planning the next sew along in August. You can make a knitted doll. It won't be this one. It will be completely different color body, different hair, everything different, but that's the principle. So it'll be a knitted body, so you do need to know how to knit, or you need to know somebody who can knit the body for you. We'll give you plenty of time to knit the body, and then we'll show you how to make the head, and we will have a pack available very soon to purchase, either just the head pack, or you can also get the knitting yarn for the body, and there will be 2 colors to choose from. One is a blue with a variegated blue, and then the other one is a pink with a variegated pink. So keeping the colors very traditional and boring, but we are offering a doll with brown skin with this one, and we're offering a doll with a light skin tone, which I haven't got here. I'm just trying to think if I've got color. So it'll be these two for the knitted dolls. So enough chatter. Hopefully everybody is here now. Let's see. More people. So there's Chris. Hi, Chris. Donna is there. Hello, everyone. She says, sorry, I'm late. It's okay because I usually waffle at the beginning, so that's good. And Alex is there, and she did the cradle last night in anticipation. So the cradle is a little project that you will find in the book. You can make a cradle with a little sort of blanket here that's separately crocheted on afterwards. You can make them in 2 colors. It's entirely up to you. If you don't put the little blanket on, then it's literally like a little basket where you can put your baby in, and it's got little handles so you can carry it as well. There you go. That's what Alex is talking about, and the I nearly said the recipe, but the instructions and pattern is in the book. And I will tell you a funny story, because I've found all the ladies here, and they're all ready and waiting to see what the new member of the family is going to be like. But I did go upstairs because I realized I didn't have some of the men dolls that I made, and I went upstairs and I said I need the medical team. And suddenly everybody upstairs in the office is like, oh my God, what's happened? Who's fallen over? Who's ill? And I said, no, I just need the medical team, these people, because I made them into the little doll's house people. We made them into hospital key workers, and so I was looking for them, but I'm going to un-key worker them right now, because they're just going to be at home chilling with their families. So they're going to take their face masks off, and they're going to join the rest of the people there to see what's happening with the baby making. There you go. So I'm just going to stand up there, ready to see who the new member of the family is. And if you do like getting into the doll making, then we have got another product that we very happily sell to you, and that's our starter pack for the doll's house dolls, and that also makes the babies, but it also makes the grown-ups. So you can get that. There are 2 versions. There's a small and a large one, and I'll show you in a minute what they look like. I'll put him there. There we are, all ready. Oh, he's still got his coat on. Let's take his coat off as well. You're at home now. You can relax. There you are. Oh, he normally wears a waistcoat, but I don't know where that is right now. Right. So this is all, the work clothes can go away, and we're going to start by making a little baby like that. And it's in 2 parts, this sew along. Today we're just concentrating on the head, and then I'm going to send you away so that you can sew the body up and make the little hat. Sew the hat up, and then on part 2 we will come together again, and we'll finish the hands and the arms off, and we will also fit the head onto it and stuff the body so that it's a nice squishy happy little baby with posable arms, so he can either hug something or he can put his hands right up there. I remember when I had little babies, it was always really funny to watch them sleep, because they are the most relaxed creatures on the planet, and their arms would be normally really like totally stretched out like this, or something like that. I'm sure that those of you who've seen babies sleep, I always get a bit envious, because I don't think I'm quite as relaxed as I used to be when I was a baby. So there you go. We're making this little chap there. Just checking in again. Faith is saying my cradle came out a bit big, so I'm making twins today. Oh, nice. Great idea. Can't wait to see the twins. Donna says, Steffi, you might need the medical team if giving birth to a baby. Keep them as medics. No, we don't need a medical team for giving birth to a little baby. We'll be absolutely fine. You just need me. I'm going to be your midwife. So let's start. First of all, you need to make a little round wool ball as a head, and that's quite easy, because you will have the wool in your pack, and it looks a little bit like this. So I'm going to come really close, and you're basically going to tighten this as tight as you can. So I'm teasing it apart, so I'm getting lots of layers to roll around. It's a bit like a avalanche. if you imagine you're rolling up a ball, and as you're going round, it picks up more and more of the wool to become bigger and bigger. And that's exactly what you're doing with a little ball. So you're really rolling it into a small sized ball, but you want it to be nice and tight. So the smaller the head, the smaller the baby appears. The body will be exactly the same size, but the smaller the head, the smaller the baby will look. And if you've got too much wool, don't feel afraid. You can just tear some off. Now, once you've got a ball like this, it should, if you've got the right wool, the wool should just sort of stick to itself if you finish it off. And it should stay that way and not pop open like that one. Oop. But if you've got wool that doesn't behave like that, then you could either just needle felt it down if you know how to needle felt, or you could even just stick a pin into it, maybe just to hold it together for now. That should also do the trick. But if you're using the right wool, then you shouldn't have any of these problems. You can still needle felt it a little bit just for fun if you want to, but it should be fine just like that, like a little wool ball that's quite tightly rolled. You can always unroll it and do it up again if that is an issue. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the skin fit over the face. So you need a little skin piece, and I will go by the instructions because you've got a bigger piece in your pack and you really don't want to be wasteful. So I tell you now what the size of the skin fabric is that you need. I'm just finding that page in the book. No, it's further at the back. There we are. So for the head, you will need 1 gram of stuffing, but we call it our standard core stuffing, which is nice and velcro-y. And then you also need the extra strong thread that I was referring to, and you need 4.5 to 6 centimeter of skin colored single knit stockinette. Now, if you don't understand the single knit, it's hard to show you on the camera, but we do a light and a heavyweight stockinette. So far, in all of the tutorials that I have done here, or live streams, I've only ever used the single knit. I like using the single knit for making heads because it's looks ever so slightly smoother when you look at the face later on. But the single one is also easier to work with because you don't have to worry what's the right and the wrong side. They're always the same, and they're a little bit more stretchy. So you can see I can get quite a good stretch out of this. Now, if you are using a double knit, it looks different from one side to the other. This is a double knit. You won't be able to see this on the camera, but you have a right side and a wrong side. So it's a little bit like a knitting stitch, and then on the other side it looks more like a garter stitch. And that's a little bit like your jumpers, the right and the wrong side. And the stretch is much less, can you tell? So I'm, really having to pull this. This works really great for making the bodies of the dolls if you're making full skin colored bodies. And that's because when you stuff it, you can stuff it really tight, but it doesn't expand, and you suddenly have got an out of shape arm or leg or something like that. So the heavy material is really great. The good news is that we have the exact color matching for the light and the heavy. So you can make the head out of the light weight fabric and then make the body out of the heavyweight fabric, and so you don't have a difference in color. And I'm just trying to see whether I can show you an example. Well, there we are. I'm just going to grab this little chap here. So he's all well dressed. All of these clothes, by the way, you can make from the book as well. But he's got the heavy fabric underneath here on his body, and he's got the light one on his head. And you cannot tell a difference in terms of color. But when you work with it, you will find the difference. So for the little baby, coming back to the baby again. Oh God, they're all collapsing now. Come on, you sit up nicely. There. For the baby, we're using the light weight fabric. Now, what we need to do next is it does involve a little bit of sewing, because we need to sew this into a tube, but we need to sew it into a tube that it fits really tightly around the head. So if you are following the exact instructions, you should be fine. But if your head is slightly smaller or slightly larger, you might have to adjust the size of the tube that you're sewing. I'm just going to double check the sizing of this one. So this is 6.5 wide, and what you want to make sure is that you have the stretch going sideways. So when so that the knitted lines, as you can see them, they should be running down and the stretch should be sideways. That's really important to remember. So I'm going to make that 4.5 centimeters long now, because this is way too long. You can always tell that I'm such a proficient sewer because I use a ruler to measure roughly, and I use probably the completely wrong scissors to cut, but as I'm not about to be invited to the British Sewing Bee, I don't think it matters. There we go. And then it's meant to be 4.5 by 6. Doesn't actually need to be that big. So I'm just going to make it, I think it was meant to be 6 centimeters long. So I've cut that wrong, but it doesn't really matter. Does it matter? Yeah, it does matter. Let's use a different color. Don't you just love it when I get it all muddled up? I'm gonna use the slightly darker skin fabric here, which is the cacao, because that is almost the right size. So it's 6 centimeters long and 4.5 centimeters wide. This one is 6 centimeters long and 5 centimeters wide. So I'm going to cut just a half centimeter or centimeter off on the side. It's all a bit like hit or miss with. If you are a sewer, you're gonna hate this. I promise you. But I just make it up as I go along often. Right. So now I've got my little wool ball in there, and if I wrap this really tight, I can see, yeah, there's about sort of a centimeter seam allowance, and the little face is quite nice and tight underneath that skin. So now comes the boring bit. We just need to sew up this tube, and because it doesn't matter whether it's the right or the wrong way around, because it's a light fabric, a lightweight fabric I should say, then we can just sew it up. And for this you need a sewing needle. And it doesn't really matter if you have a thread that matches this exactly fabric or not, because it's going to be hidden, the seam, entirely. But I'm going to use one that matches this color, just to please those who need to know that it's not a very different color one. And I'm going to go small in a minute. Try and thread my needle first. Yeah. So I'm going to get a bit closer up so that you can see how I'm sewing this together. Okay, here we go. So I've threaded my needle, and now I'm going to sew up this fabric by doing a back stitch. So I'm just establishing first of all the thread by going in and out a few times. You can't put a knot on it. I'm just going to cut the ends to equal distance so that it don't flap around. And now a back stitch basically is where you go in 1 stitch back and then you go 2 stitches forward. And so then you go 1 stitch back and 2 stitches forward. So you're always coming out just slightly ahead of where your where you went in. That's the back stitch, and makes a really solid seam. If you don't want to do a back stitch, just do a running stitch, go in and out, in and out, in and out, all the way across, and then go back on yourself. But this way you're literally doing two rows of stitches in one go. Got a little bit of a loop there because I haven't tightened it enough, but I can still do that. There we go. So I'm just going to continue doing this stitching, and while I'm doing this, I'm going to have a little read also what you're saying here, because that might inform what I'm saying next. So Donna says, Steffi, you might need, oh yes, we have covered that. Hi Kathy, she's just joined. I know you had a meeting. I saw that message. Thank you for letting us know. This is not part of the sew along. You do not attach a pipe cleaner into your seam. This is just because I'm not watching what I'm doing. Oh God, you couldn't plan this, could you? Hang on, I just need to get it out again. There. Go away, pipe cleaner. Here we are. Okay. I don't think looking at comments and sewing is such a good idea. So Chris just wondered what fabric was used. I hope I've been clear enough about the type of fabric. You don't need to buy that in a pack. You can also just buy it on its own. But if we sell it in fat quarters, which are quite big, so that at least one side is 50 centimeters and the other side is whatever the half of the width of the fabric, which I can't remember now. But in any case, you get quite a lot. When you, for the doll, you only need tiny amounts, and then you get in the doll pack, in the baby pack, you get everything else that you need to make at least 4 or 5 babies. So it might be better if you just want to do that to get the pack. It works out cheaper, basically. What size again, please? So for the baby, for the head, you need 4.5 centimeter width and 6 centimeter length. That is what you need. This might be way too late to tell you now, Faith, but that's the size of the fabric that you need. And if you have got my book, Making Soft Dolls, I'll just show you here, there, then you get everything that you need to know is in the instructions. And the way it's laid out is that here you get a list of ingredients, and then you have basically, you can see what I'm telling you now. Sometimes I go in a different order, but don't worry, we'll get there in the end. I'm doing exactly the same. So we're sewing this little tube up at the moment, or we're sewing this into a tube. So we've got a face cover for the baby. And if you're making this too loose, don't worry, because you can always put a second seam along the first seam, so making it tighter. If it's too tight, just pull it as hard as you can and give it a good old stretch, because it does stretch a lot. It is really, really lovely stretchy fabric. It is a natural fabric. It's 100% cotton. There's no man-made fiber in there, but it's just the way that it's been knitted that makes the difference. Right, so I've now sewn this up one or another way, and I'm going to cut the end off after I've secured the thread. So now I've got a little tube that's inside out. Put my little finger in there. There you go. There's the seam. And now I've got to turn it the right way around. So now I've got it so that the seam is now on the inside. There's the seam, and it's nice and smooth on the other side. I'm not going to put this on the head just yet. You can, if you don't want to tie an eye line into the baby's head. So if you don't want to do that, if you just want it to be really nice and round with no eye line in it, I'm just trying to find one that has been made like this. I think I must like tying eye lines into it. Oh, this one. This one doesn't have an eye line, so it's just a really nice round little face. If you want to compare it to one that has got an eye line, it might even be hard to see here on the camera, but because it's not quite 3D, but there is ever such a slight indentation there where the eyes are, and that is what I'm going to show you next. So to do that, you need your woolen ball that you've got there, and now you're going to take your extra strong thread, which comes in the pack, but if you haven't got one in the pack, then it needs to be one that is just trying to find a longer piece. Just bear with me. Then you need to have a it doesn't have to be a specialist thread, though we do sell this thread. But what I've also used in the past is embroidery thread, which works quite well if you haven't got anything else to hand. The main thing is that it doesn't tear. You really won't like it if it tears. So I'm going to tie a line around the head, and I'm actually going against how I've tied it, how I've wound it. So this is the fiddly bit, and this is where people often think, oh, I'm just going to make the head without it. It's only fiddly because it's tiny. So I'm tying, I'm putting two wraps of this thread around the head, and I am then tying a knot at the other end. It is fiddly, I'll give you that, honestly, it is fiddly. So just trying to get that end. In fact, I'm going to just needle felt that down now because I can, and it's annoying me that I'm not needle felting it down when I know I can. So I'm needle felting the end bit down, but you don't have to do that. That is just optional. You could also give it just a stitch with your needle and thread, as long as you're not creating sort of a surface, a bump on the surface, it's fine. Right, so I'm going round this head twice with my thread. And then I'm tying, so I'm putting my, getting ready to tie a knot, but instead of going once through the loop, I'm actually going twice through the loop. And the reason for that is that you can now tighten it. Make sure that the two run parallel before you pull it tight. You can now tighten it, and because you've gone round it twice, it doesn't sort of, it stays that way. It's not a knot yet, but it doesn't pop open again. So I'm making that nice and tight, and now I'm putting a knot on top. There, and then I can cut the thread short. So I've literally tied an eye line, what's meant to be in the middle of the head, but it's slightly up, but it's meant to be in the middle. And now I'm going to put that little ball of wool inside my tube that I've sewn up, and you should be able to see where you've tied the eye line. Because it's done on such a small scale, I can just about see it, but you might struggle there on camera. You might see it better when you do it at home, which is also why it's not that necessary to tie an eye line, because it's not going to make such a huge difference. So make sure that the head is in the right, wherever you want it to be in the tube. If you feel it needs to be tighter, there's no reason why you can't pop that wool. I think you can now see the eye line actually in that light now. There's no reason why you can't take that head out again and sew the seam a little bit closer. You can still make it tighter also. I'll show you in a minute how you can make it tighter as well. So now all I'm going to do is I'm using my extra strong thread, and I'm tying one end of this little bomb that I've just made, and I use the same method where I go in and out twice. So I'm tying the base up first, there, and that is going to be the base of it. That's where the chin is rather than the top of the head. And then I cut my thread like that. And then I've got all of this bit here and the top to deal with, and I'm just going to fold this to the back of the head so that the front of my face is completely with no creases and no seams. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew this in. So I need my sewing thread again. And if this feels a little bit long, you can just cut it off. That's fine. And it shouldn't go further than the tied neck below. So now I'm going to establish my thread again. And then I'm going to start sewing that flap in at the back. And I'm starting with, and I'm doing this with an invisible stitch. So I go into my fabric here, there, and then I go into that flap. So I try not to get caught up. So I'm pulling the fabric close as I'm going in to one and out of the other. So I'm literally, this is what's called an invisible stitch. So you're folding the seam inward, and you've just got a little bit of the stitches showing on the outside. So I'm going up to one corner first. I keep checking that it's not sort of an obstacle in the face or showing in the face. So you need the face of the baby to be completely smooth. And then I'm going back round, and I'm actually folding the open end of the tube in, because I can so easily get rid of this now with my invisible stitch by just tucking it the inside, so I don't, even though nobody's gonna see this, if you want to make a neat job of it, then this is the way to do it. So you're making this really tight, and the main thing you have to remember is that all the unsightful things need to be on the back of the head where the seam is already, and and nothing unsightful should be on the front of the baby's face. So fiddly, but not too bad. I'm just going to come a lot closer, bringing this close as well if I can, just so that the camera focuses on this. Have I fooled it? Not quite. Need a little I tell you what, I'm going to a different camera where it actually zooms in. I'm back here now. It's just coming close, wanting to show you. So I've gone into the head here, and then I've gone into the flap. And as I'm sewing it, I'm pulling this, and so it comes together, and all the unsightful things sort of disappear on the inside. But if you're making a complete horrible job of it, don't worry, because it's going to be covered up. So as long as you make sure that the front of the head is nice and neat, it doesn't really matter what you do on the back. Nobody will see it. It's only you who will know it, and if you can live with that, then that's good enough. So I keep checking that the front hasn't sort of like moved around and suddenly looks like it's been sewn up. Yeah, looks really nice still. I'm working my way around this. So this is probably not the most useful view, but I will just have a look at some of the comments here. Thank you, Emma, for repeating the size. So 6 centimeter long and 4.5 centimeters wide, and the stretch has to be sideways. My internet is not playing ball today, keeps dropping out. I'm really sorry, Donna. I don't know if it's me at my end, if anybody else is having problems. But Emma, maybe you could just let people know here at work where I am that they're not meant to upload any large files right now. That would be great. Pamela is saying, good morning, you are all ahead of me. Ha ha ha, that's very funny. Yes, we're definitely almost one head, maybe just half a head ahead of you. And I hope you're well, Pamela. I know that you're calling in or watching from the US, so welcome. Which way is the stretch going? Sideways. The stretch is going sideways, Helen. So oh, thank you, Donna, for answering that. Erica is there. Hi all, she says. Helen says, I think I've cut it wrong. Don't worry too much about it. If you've cut it wrong, either use a new piece, because the little pieces often come in handy if you have got if you have to make little hands or fists for Doll's House dolls. Don't ever throw away any scraps. So if you've got another piece, then do it right. But I'm telling you now, one of my first dolls, I couldn't understand what was wrong with it. It just didn't look right, and I had actually used a heavy fabric inside out, and it at the time I didn't notice because I was so intent on sewing and work. But this is how I work. I make mistakes, and then I suddenly realize, and then I improve next time. That's just I know that's how most of us work, but I'm a particular prime example for it, because I really will just go for it, and I make lots of mistakes, and then I learn from it, and then I try again and I learn from it. I never read instructions. I'm one of these people who puts IKEA furniture together and then probably has to glue things on and buy extra things to make it look right. So I'm not the best example to go by. But don't worry, if you have gone wrong, nothing's ever a problem, because you can either put it right or start over again. So I'm just getting rid of the thread now. The back of the head doesn't look too bad. There we go. So this is the back of the head. I'll show you now. There, it's all sewn up, and then the front of the head is nice and smooth. No bumps or anything like that. The eye line could be more visible, but it's not. But I'm not worried about it. Once you get into making lots of these babies, you find your own way of how to make some of the eye lines more visible and tighter, and so maybe the tubing could have been a little bit tighter, or the eye line could have been more distinct. You'll work your way around it. Even if there is no eye line in these babies, it will hardly be visible. I'm just going to have a sip of my tea. It's peppermint tea today. And also just to remind you that you can join our Everyone a Maker Facebook page. And we have also got a doll Facebook page. So it's called Making Soft Dolls. Come and join it. And then we share on there what you've been making. In any case, I'd like to see some of your photos, because I would love to share them at the next time that we're meeting, which is this is part 1 of the sew along, and the next one is why don't I know this sooner? Dolls sewn. Oh yeah, that's right. So oh no, that's the wrong sew along. I will get there. Just bear with me. Oh, that's something entirely different. We changed that. Oh, I'm in July. Okay, that's why. So the Doll's House Baby Sew Along is on the 16th of June and the 19th of June. So, oh God, that's taken ages to work out. Sorry about this, guys, but you probably know this much sooner than I do. So if you're watching this in retrospect, then there is a second part to this one, which you can watch straight after, if even though I haven't done it yet, but I will at the time when you're watching it. That's really complicated thinking. Anyway, trying to cover all current and future viewers. And of course, sometimes these comments that I'm looking at, they disappear, and so that's why I try and read them out, so that you yes. Oh, sorry, just talking about comments. Yes, the camera from above is hazy. It's a really, I don't know what's going on. It's I need to investigate that. It's got a bit of a dreamy look, doesn't it? So I'll try and avoid that one. Are you not using tubular gauze for the baby? No, you don't. You don't need to use the tubular gauze for the baby, because it's just too tiny. There's just no point in doing it. It seems to be wasted. But if you want to, you can. It's not wrong if you do. And okay, Donna says no, it was the internet at my end this time. Seems to be okay now. Okay. Faith says, I'm so far behind, I've stopped and I'm now listening to learn the best I can. Oh, we'll see how we go with time, but I might just do it quickly again, so that if you've watched it, if you've missed it the first time, and I'd use a different camera as well, then oh, hi Stephanie, you couldn't find us, but you're here now. Excellent. Helen says, don't worry, Faith, I'm going to buy the book. And Faith is saying, I have the book. My daughter has nicked it to make more baskets. Oh, bless. And thank you, Emma. You probably beat me to it. Friday the 19th is part 2. Is the lens clean on the hazy camera? Well, there's no reason why it shouldn't be clean. Oh, I don't know, actually. It could be quite dirty, so maybe I need to clean it. Oh, I haven't had tea. Okay, so now I'm going to make facial features. I'm just going to go to a different camera, and I will just hold it close. So this is the little baby that I've just, the head that I've just made. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to give that baby eyes, hair, and a mouth. And I'm starting with the eyes. And for the eyes, I need a I'm using a brown thread, and this is an embroidery thread, and they normally come in 6-ply. I think I might have already taken a couple of plies off this. So if you have got an embroidery thread, the cotton thread, we certainly put that in the pack, then all I want you to do is take 1 ply off that. It always works better if you don't have a massive long thread, because it sort of gets a little bit tangled up. So you just have to pull it out. There we go. And this is just a single ply now. And I'm going to put that on my sewing needle. I've got to take a slightly larger, well, actually for that little head, I can still use the same needle, and thread that in. So now everything that we're starting in terms of sewing features on the face starts from the back. So I'm going to start, zoom in. Come on, camera, zoom in. Ah, there we go. I'm going to start here establishing the thread on the back of the head, where it's already messy looking. So all of this will be covered up later. So I'm just establishing the thread now. I have to stand still for the camera to respond. No, it's wanting to look at the book, not at my hands. And then I'm going to go all the way from the back of the head into the front of the head. And I sort of try a few times wherever the thread is taking me out. I'm just going to give that camera a little clean up there. So just bear with me, because it might be the camera if the camera is dirty. I don't know what I might have done to it, but probably. So I'm going to try the closer up one again to see if that's, oh, that's less hazy actually. Thank you for that tip, Emma. Oh, that's much better. Right, so coming out from, going from the back of the head, which is here, all the way through the front of the head, sort of finding, if you've got the eye line, then you obviously know where you're going. And now I'm just going to go back and forth like I'm embroidering the eye from, and I'm just putting a couple of stitches because we're making a sleepy eye, so it's like more like a slit than a big eye. And then I'm going underneath the fabric, underneath it to the next eye. So I'm coming out a little bit along, and make them quite wide apart, because that's more sort of a baby feature, that the eyes are wider apart. And if you don't have an eye line, try and have the eyes in the middle, and then go back out again at the back once you've done the second eye. Tidy your thread away, give it a couple of stitches, and then you can cut it short like that. And then the next thing you're going to do is, you've got a red sewing thread in there. Just take a length off and put this on your needle. Don't need very much at all. So this is just a normal sewing thread if you've got our baby pack. You can use a single embroidery thread strand. And then you're going to do the same, but this time just one embroidery stitch to the front. So I'm starting out at the back, securing my thread. I'm keeping this double. It's a double thread. Well, I'm trying anyway. So sew it from the back, establish it. The back looks absolutely hideous, but it's going to be covered up, so just ignore that for the moment, and find a way to the front, and then come out of your the mouth at the front. So you might have to sort of go in and out a couple of times and poke around with the needle to make sure it's in the middle, and then go back and forth the mouth a couple of times. Because you've got a double thread, just be careful that you don't have a loop showing, and just give it a tiny little mouth. Go back out the back again, tidy your thread away as you did with the eyes. There, that's the little face looking at you now. And I'm just going to tidy the thread away in the back, and then cut that off. So now our little baby has got a face, it's got a little mouth, and it's got sleepy eyes. And the next thing we're going to do is giving it hair. So for this you need to go back to your embroidery thread, and you can use this the full thickness, or you can use it with less of a ply. That's entirely up to you. If you use the full thickness, it looks like fuller hair. If you use it as a single or double ply, it looks slightly thinner. So I'm just going to go for a different color so that I can show you what it's like if you use the full the full 6 ply. And the in your pack you will have had the brown for the eyes and the hair is the same color. So because I'm using it a slightly thicker, I need to use a different needle. There we go. So now you're going to put hair onto the baby, and the way to do that is by, again, we're starting out at the back. Everything starts at the back of the head. Establishing that thread. Just go in and out a couple of times. And then you're going all the way, and then you're starting to literally just put long stitches for hair. So whatever is coming, reaching out onto the front of the face, like here, that will be visible underneath the hat. The hat line, oops, lost my thread. The hat line will sort of cover up half of the hair. So you want all the nice bits to look, what pokes out of the hat. You want all of that to look nice, and everything else that's hidden by the hat can look not so nice. So I'm giving him or her strands of hair. Some of them are so really close to the eye, even hanging down his forehead. He's got long hair, or she, don't know yet if it's a boy or girl. And you can do just one row if you like, keep it nice and simple, and then if you feel it needs more hair, you can go the other way again. So that's entirely up to you. They can also cross over the strands of wool. They don't have to be side by side. It's just like real hair. It could be really, really quite wild or quite tame. However you want to design your little doll. So I've and then you could go over a third time if you feel it needs more in certain places. You just have to imagine that some of it will be hidden away and some of it will be visible, and make sure that the nice parts are visible and the bits that aren't so nice are hidden away. So mine has got quite a wild little mane there, but I'm sort of imagining that it will be hidden away quite a bit there. And now I've just got to get rid of the rest of my strand of cotton here. Actually getting rid of that on top of the head now. Just a couple of stitches, and then you can cut the thread if you don't do knots. So there you go. There's a little head now with a bit of just coming a bit closer. Try and do that there. Little face, looks absolutely awful at the back. Not very pretty at all, but if you imagine that a little hat will sit on that little head, then you can see that is actually, where are you going with this there? So that's the little head done, basically, and that is how far we are going today. So I'm going to see what questions people have got, because I want to make sure that you're all with me so far. Fluff gets everywhere. Hayes camera looks fine. Yes, that's because I've cleaned it. Thank you, Erica. And Stephanie says, you re-threaded that needle so easily. I have cross-stitched for years and never seen it done like that. Thank you. Another tip I have noticed. Oh, have I done it in a different way? I didn't even notice. So the way that I thread a needle is I tend to not go for the end, especially with an embroidery thread. It's just forever looking. I actually fold it in half using my needle, and then I've got a really tight little bent over thread which you can flatten a bit so it doesn't poke out too much, and then I just put it in the needle and then it's threaded. Yeah, it's all those little, these are the things we need to share, because I didn't even realize I was doing it differently to anybody else. So if anybody has got any specific questions now, that will be particularly helpful, because I'm still here and I can go over it again. But what I would like you to do for next time is take your instructions or your pattern or your book or whatever you have got, and you can either keep this intact. This is something I learned from last time. You can leave this whole piece intact so that you don't have to cut the template out. If you've got any greaseproof paper, you can lay this on there and trace around it and then cut that out as a template. And all you need to do is cut these two parts out there, cut them out, and then we are going to sew the body and the hat together. But of course, if you want to work ahead, then you can do that too. It's really quite straightforward. You obviously need 2 of these body parts. That should be written on there, but you need to make 2 of these body parts. Only 1 hat, but two body parts, and they need to be sewn together, but leave the top entirely open for now. So don't sew the top up, just sew around. In fact, I just mark it here with a line. If you want to work ahead, you can, but otherwise we'll do this here together. So you're only sewing up the parts that I've marked purple now, and you need two of these body parts. So there you go. You're only sewing around these, the under the arm, around the pouch, and leave the top open, and obviously you leave the sides here where the hands poke out open anyway. And then the hat you sew together on the straight parts. Leave the round parts unsewn, because that's going to be the bit that fits around the head, which is why it's round. So that's basically what your homework is for next time. Cut out the body parts and the hat, and then make it in. If you want to, you can work ahead, but otherwise I will do it with you as well. So I'm not going to have this ready done. I will do it so you can join me for next time, and then next time we make the hands and we finish the little baby off. So it's just a two-part sew along, and of course you can re-watch this anytime. It stays on YouTube, but we've got as far as this today, having made a little head with a sleepy baby, and given it some hair. You don't have to give it hair. I've got a hairless one here, really little it's really hard in the camera's not really picking up on it, but it's very pale. This one has got no hair at all. My babies all had hair, but not all babies have hair. Everybody's different, and you can give them all kinds of different color hair. So he's got brown hair. He's got also brown hair. I don't think I've got blonde. Oh, I've got red haired baby. Oh yes, and I should show you this in the dolls book, in the Making Soft Dolls book. There's also a pattern. If you don't want to make a little crocheted cradle like this one, you can actually make a felt papoose, and that comes off, and it can be there's a little baby inside already there, and it can be worn. It's just got a cross strap, and it can either be worn on the back of a doll like that, or it can be worn on the front of the doll as well, like that. Just like a proper baby carrier, that you can choose whether you want it on the front or on the back. So if you wear it on the front, then it looks like that. And of course, for this you have to make grown-up dolls house dolls for it as well. And they're all of these. It tells you how to make these in the Making Soft Dolls book. There's a whole section on dolls house dolls, and incidentally, there's also a whole nice little tutorial of making sleepy pets to go with a doll's house, because I think everybody needs a four-legged friend in their house, whether it's a cat or a dog. These are all the dogs, and then here are the cats all curled up together in a basket. Unlikely that they do that, but they do this in my world. So there you go, little pussy cat sleeping. And they go really nicely with the doll's house dolls. But making soft dolls is not just about doll's house dolls, it's also about big size dolls. And if you don't know this, but a few weeks ago we did these velour dolls. So this is Hannah and Sunny. And we still have these packs for sale if anybody wants to buy buy all the materials to make these. You can watch the video tutorial, which is still on our YouTube channel. If you have the book, then you will also get the templates in there. But if you buy our pack, which is, it looks a bit like that. You get everything in there to make the dolls. You just need to use your own sewing needles and scissors. On our website, it tells you exactly what you need to make the doll. And like I say, there is a pattern in there. There's a template in there to make the dolls as well. If you haven't got our book, and you can watch the video tutorial, and then you can make one of those dolls. They come in 3 different colors, and these are the packs that I mentioned earlier, the starter packs for the doll's house dolls, which comes as a small and as a large, and it absolutely makes loads. So you can definitely make babies out of this, and also the larger Dolls House dolls. It comes with embroidery thread, it comes with stuffing, with a hair selection, with felt pieces, and of course we sell also the felt that we use to make all the clothes and the dolls and the accessories. We sell those either in single sheets on our website, or you can buy a mixed pack, especially like a rainbow pack, which is new as well. So just have a quick look at the comments. Faith says, thank you, Steffi, gonna be busy today. Diane says, loving making the little baby. Oh, thank you, Diane. Donna says, now hopefully no one will lose their head. Oh my goodness, don't say that. I actually did lose one, but I refound it. So Laura says, sorry I was late today. Phone went into update. Looking to watching from beginning. Oh, nice. Excellent, Laura. You will see it all later on when it's properly on Facebook. Not on Facebook, on YouTube. We will also share it on Facebook. Diane says, I've made the sleepy pets from your kit and they're super cute. Oh, thank you, Diane. And Erica just sends lots of emojis of hearts and hugs. And Helen says, my sleepy cat came out so tiny. Oh, I like it when they come out tiny, because I really struggle to make things tiny. Everything gets bigger and bigger. So are there certificates for the doll making fabrics in the kits? So basically, we haven't got any toy safety certificates to go with the fabrics. All I can tell you is that they are they have the Ecotex certification. If you need any particular specific material information, then let us know, we send it to you. But we don't vouch for them to be toys safe for toy making. There's a whole thing about toy making and selling toys that we've decided at a very early age we won't be going into, because it's such a minefield. If you're selling anything that you're making from our kits or books or ideas, we really love you to do that. We're not stopping you to multiply the production line and making lots of them and selling them. If ever you give us a plug, we're very grateful, but we don't stop you from doing it. All I will say is it might be definitely good to look into toy safety regulations. There is a whole thing on the back of the book that I wrote about, because it's one of the frequently asked questions. Toy safety certification. If you're planning to make dolls as toys to sell for profit, you will find that getting a toy safety certificate can be elaborate and expensive. You will need each component in the doll to have the manufacturer safety certificate, and the materials must be new, not used or recycled. You will have to have your doll tested, and then any subsequent dolls you make have to be made in exactly the same way with the same components. As you will see, it is a very complicated and quite restricting process. If you are still planning to sell your dolls without the toy safety certification, you have to make it clear that they are not a toy and for display purposes only. There you go. Yes, it was. I looked at that years ago when I wanted to sell my dolls, and I was never going to be a manufacturing churning out thing. I like the individuality of the dolls, so each single one would have been completely different. And when I spoke to somebody about this, and they said, oh, they have to be sent off and they have to be tested. I think they try and tear them, chuck them, burn them, squash them. They do all the kinds of things that I would never want to any of my dolls to happen, whether they it's a prototype or whatever. I want my dolls to be loved by everybody and not try to be destroyed. So I decided that actually that wasn't for me, making lots and lots of them to sell. But I know a lot of people do that, so maybe you can find out what you need to do that. And the other alternative is just give them away for free. How about that? Then you're in no trouble at all, because if it's a gift, then it's entirely different. It's only when you're making lots of profit out of it. So I hope this has been helpful. We see you again on the 19th, which I think is Friday this week, at 11 a.m. British Summer Time. Or obviously, if you're watching this as a recording, then it will be whenever you want to watch me. And I think that's it. There's no more comments here, so before anybody else says anything, I'm just gonna go. And I see you on Friday, and in the meantime, stay safe, stay happy, and do a bit of sewing and make babies.